Welcome to our very first episode of Boca Raton Injury Law with Mike Grife, the podcast about personal injury and car accidents serving Boca Raton and Naples in the state of Florida. I'm Abby, and today we're doing something special. We're going to explore the expertise and background of our co-host and expert attorney, Mike Grife, in what we affectionately call the U interview. We want to get to know how Mike Grife became Mike Grife, the founder of the Florida-based law firm, the Grife Law Firm Injury Lawyers. That's exactly what we're here to explore today. So, Mike, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Abby.
Yeah, before we dive into your professional journey, set the stage for us and tell us where you're from, where you grew up, etc.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, where you get two educations. You get the school education and you get the New York City street education. And I got to say that it's been really invaluable in my career to help me to relate to people of every sort of race, religion, creed, sexual orientation, whatever. You know, New York is the melting pot, the Big Apple. And I've kind of met every sort of person you can imagine growing up there. I was taking public transportation into Manhattan when I was a teenager, a young teenager. So again, you get two educations, one in the street, one in school. And it's been an absolute pleasure to use that to help people down here in South Florida, where it's also kind of a cultural melting pot. You know, you have a lot of people from a lot of different ethnicities, and it's fascinating to meet these people, to represent them, for them to trust me with their cases and handling it the right way, knowing it's going to get done with maximum value and maximum effort and maximum care and concern for what they've been through.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. So let's start at the beginning. A lot of people don't just wake up one day and decide to become a lawyer. There's usually a story behind it. What was it that inspired you to become a lawyer?
So I'm going to get really real on this answer. And I think this might be a little bit different than what other people have to say. So I know some people say I was home from school and I saw some movie with a lawyer and I was really inspired, and, whatever it is, that wasn't necessarily me. So when I was in college, I was a little bit conflicted about what I wanted to do with my career path. I really wanted to kind of at one point be a film director and, direct film and movies and things like that. I have a really keen understanding of cinema and art and how to put together a movie. And I think that storytelling, ironically, has helped me so much in my career as a trial lawyer, because it's really all about telling your client's story and doing it in a way that's engaging to the jury. But I was at one point I was really thinking about going into film. I was thinking about going into sports journalism. And then my stepdad, who was basically like my dad growing up, and I was talking to him about, what should I do with my career? These are kind of my options. And he looked at me and said, hey, listen, you like nice clothes, nice cars, nice houses. You should go be a lawyer. So I was like, yeah, that sounds right. So I kind of took his advice. And then literally from before I started law school, I had my first reading assignment and I just took to it, almost like, I don't want to say it like a prodigy, but kind of I really just took to it in the most natural way, reading through the cases, reading through and I'm like, wow, this is really for me. I really understand this on a very innate level. So I got some really great advice and I took it and I went to law school and here we are.
Wow, I love that. That's super unique, the storytelling aspect of it. So I love that answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. So once you made that decision to pursue law, walk me through it. Where did you go to law school and what's your education background? Are there any key credentials or certifications that are important for people to know about you?
Yeah. So when I decided to go to law school, I was actually I went to Hofstra University on Long Island in New York, and I was planning to go to law school in Manhattan. I had made New York School of Law, downtown Manhattan, and I thought that's where I would go. And I had a friend from growing up from New York City, and he had moved down to Florida. He was going to Nova Southeastern University School of Law in Fort Lauderdale. And he said, Mike, come down and visit for a weekend and check it out before you make any decisions about law school. So I came down for a weekend, hung out in Fort Lauderdale, and I haven't really left Florida since. That was a very easy decision to stay down here in Florida when I just saw how beautiful everything was. The weather, just everything just really turned me on. So I love South Florida. I really love being here. And I graduated from Southeastern University. And I started my career straight out of law school doing personal injury, helping people who have been injured in car accidents and slip and falls. And later, of course, started a very prosperous career in medical malpractice. But right out of the gate, when I graduated law school, I was very fortunate. I got hired by a great, great man who was doing personal injury law, who took me under his wing and, really started there. And I've really been very fortunate to be recognized by a lot of amazing honors, peer review societies. So I've been recognized by best lawyers in America for personal injury and for medical malpractice. AV rated by Martindale-Hubbell, which is preeminent, which is the highest rating that you can get. I'm also been in super lawyers since I want to say for at least 10 years, I've been recognized by super lawyers, but really more than that. So I've really been fortunate to be in these sort of like honor societies. I sit on various committees for the Palm Beach County Bar Association, the Civil Practice Committee, where we routinely meet with judges. And we have meetings about how to expedite civil cases and, the best rules and procedures that we can enact to help the court system. So that's an honor to be able to sit on that committee and routinely meet with judges and be able to see how they see things from the bench, and they can see how we see things from the lawyer perspective. I'm a lifetime member in the multi-million-dollar Advocates Forum, which is limited only to those plaintiff attorneys who have recovered multi-millions of dollars as lead counsel for plaintiffs in litigation, not in pre-suit, but in actual litigation where lawsuits been filed and discovery's been conducted. So really, I've been very blessed and fortunate to be trusted by some amazing, amazing clients with their catastrophic injury cases, and been able to get some really good results.
Wow, very impressive. And we will get into some more of those awards and what you're doing in the law community later on in the podcast too. So I'm excited to expand on that. So I want to go back to the law school part of it for a second. Were there any early experiences during school that pointed you toward personal injury specifically?
Well, I did clerk for a firm after my second year that was doing personal injury. And that was really exciting. I could remember there was probably about 3 or 4 attorneys that were working there as associates. I was a second year law student, and one of the partners had asked me to research something. He wanted to move for summary judgment. And I found some very, very important case law relative to the motion he wanted to file. And he literally stopped the entire firm. And he was like, I want all of you to know that Mike Grife found this case and he is doing amazing. And you should all, kind of strive to be more like him and things like that. And I was, to be honest with you, I was really flattered, but I was like a little bit embarrassed because I'm like, here are like 3 to 5 year attorneys and he's telling them to be more like me and everything. So, but yeah, I think that those sort of early experiences in the civil litigation field made me feel like this is something that I can excel in.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, you had that story like ready to go. That's amazing. So what did you think law would be like versus what you actually discovered once you got into it?
That's such a great question, Abby. So I think the thing about law that law students kind of don't understand is the business of law. Because law is a profession, but it's also a business, especially if you're going to own a firm, run a firm, have IOTA accounts, things like that. So all the theoretics are great, right? Like you want to know all the rules of law, the rules of procedure, the statutes, all of that. But you have to understand the business of law because that's a whole different animal than what they teach you in law school. So I think that's really, really important. And I think also just understanding your clients and why they hire you, because that's one thing about being from New York City that I'm very proud of is I think I understand the everyday person, the everyday working person. I could relate so well because when you do personal injury and you do medical malpractice, they hire you to recover money for them. And, if you're some lawyer lost in all the theoretics and things like that, and you don't understand that these people are hiring you to get justice, to get money and get as much money as possible for the harms that they've been through and that they're going to continue to experience when this case is over, then some people get lost in that. Like, you know what I'm saying? In terms of like, don't be overly theoretical. Understand why these people are hiring you, why your clients are hiring you, and do right by them and get them what they hired you for.
Yeah, that's amazing. So personal injury is a pretty broad category. I know that the Grife Law Firm Injury Lawyers handles motor vehicle accidents, slip and falls, wrongful death cases. But within personal injury law, are there specific types of cases you and your team focus on most? And what drew you to those particular cases?
Yes, absolutely, Abby. So we focus on three sorts of cases or four sorts of cases, really. Um, Car accidents, which includes truck crashes, because truck crashing or truck crashes and representing victims of tractor trailer crashes is a very specialized area of law. You really should know about all of the interstate trucking rules and things like that. So truck crashes, motorcycle crashes, boat crashes, any sort of moving vehicular crash. We really specialize in that, and we're exceptional in representing injury victims who have suffered those sort of crashes. We know that law upside down, inside and out. Same with medical malpractice, which is really what I kind of personally focus on. The majority of the cases that I work up are medical malpractice because I find it to be absolutely fascinating. It's every case is kind of unique. You have to know the anatomy. You have to know the body. Like I venture to say, I know more about stroke medicine, cardiovascular medicine, and orthopedics than 99% of non-doctors out there. And even quite honestly, maybe better than some doctors, because when you do medical malpractice, you have to understand the medicine first and foremost. And you're going into these doctors' fields and you're cross-examining them and you're winning the case for your client. You have to understand what happened, why it happened, and what could have been done to prevent it. So medical malpractice and nursing home neglect as well. When we trust our loved ones, our infirmed and oftentimes elderly loved ones to the care of a nursing home or an ALF, they need to meet the standard of care and take care of these people, these loved ones that we're entrusting them with. And when they don't do that, then we need to go in and get remuneration for the harms that have been inflicted. And then also we do dangerous property fall cases. So when business owners, things of that nature, people of that nature have property and they invite you under their property, whether it's a restaurant, a supermarket, what have you, a mall, they have to keep their property safe. And when they don't keep their property safe and they have dangerous conditions and someone falls and suffers very serious injuries, then we're very, very good at representing those people and getting them the full compensation that they deserve.
Yeah. So do you think that it's the complexity of the cases or the impact on people's lives, or what makes them meaningful to you personally?
Well, I've actually felt since I first became a lawyer that it's an honor and a privilege for someone to put their trust in you, for someone to say, I have a case, I've been wronged, and I'm counting on you, Mike Grife and the Grife Law Firm, to right that wrong for me. I take that extremely personal because, again, I'm honored and flattered that they've chosen me to represent them. And so it's in my DNA to go extremely hard and aggressive for them to get them full and fair justice so they feel financially compensated, but also they feel like there's been an acknowledgement that, someone committed a wrong and they're making up for that. So that's always made me kind of gravitate towards PI and medical malpractice. But yeah, we love catastrophic injury cases where there's life care planners and people have suffered really significant harms, traumatic brain injuries, paralysis, anoxic brain injuries, all of it. And then, of course, just, also your everyday sort of car accident cases with herniated discs and neck and back surgery and things like that. They're all so important. And we gravitate towards all of them. And I think really the main reason we gravitate towards them is because it's so important to right the wrongs, because anyone who, through no fault of their own, has been, seriously injured. And we as Americans value our health more than anything. And if you have your health deteriorated or taken away because someone, whether it was a driver, a doctor, a property owner, acted in a careless fashion and didn't give you the care and concern that you deserve, then someone needs to right that wrong for you. And it's just a great honor and privilege for us to do that.
Wow, I love how passionate you are about it. That shows that you care a lot. And so for this next question, this is something that you've already answered a little bit of, but I'd love to just get another synopsis of it with your answer in this. So I'm curious about your roots. Are you originally from Florida, or did you come here for your practice? And if you're not originally from here, what brought you to Florida, and how does your background influence the way you approach your work? Again, I feel like you've already answered all of that, but if you want to just kind of run through it again really quick for this.
Happy to run through it again. So I'm originally from Brooklyn. I'm originally from New York City. The melting pot, the Big Apple, where I came into contact with every race, religion, creed, sexual orientation that you can imagine growing up, where I was taking public transportation into Manhattan as a young teenager. And that really kind of gave me two educations. It gave me the street education, and it gave me the book smart education. So I'm very grateful for that experience growing up. And it's really helped me relate to my clients as I've, embarked upon this career in law, because most of my clients aren't, lawyers and doctors and things like that. Most of my clients are great everyday people like I grew up with in New York City. So it's been an honor and privilege to get to know them and represent them and be able to relate to them on a level that I think a lot of lawyers can't. So I was living in New York City. I went to Hofstra University on Long Island for undergraduate. I majored in print journalism and really excelled in that. I could have had probably a really prosperous career in journalism, but I felt like I wanted something greater. And I was all set to go to law school in New York City. And I had a buddy from growing up who was living in Fort Lauderdale who invited me down for the weekend. And once I came down to Fort Lauderdale, I never left. And so I wound up going to Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, graduated law school from there, got my first job out of law school in Delray Beach. A great PI attorney hired me and took me under his wing and trained me, and the rest is history.
Amazing. So is your practice strictly Florida-based, or do you cover other jurisdictions as well?
Yes, our practice is strictly Florida-based. All of our attorneys are licensed here in Florida. We're very, very knowledgeable about Florida law. I think sometimes you get these attorneys who are barred in 3 or 4 different states. And I don't know that, it's kind of like you could run into a jack of all trades, master of none. But we like to say that we kind of master Florida law. We know Florida law up and down, backwards and forwards. And so we focus on Florida. We're 100% Florida all the time.
For folks listening who aren't sure if you can help them, what regions does the Grife Law Firm injury lawyers actually serve?
We serve all regions of Florida, from the Panhandle to the Keys. If you have a case that requires justice, a serious case, then we're your attorneys. We're here for you. I've handled cases all throughout Florida, big time wrongful death cases, paralysis cases, big time brain injury cases in almost every county in the state. So we're very, very well adept at handling cases all throughout Florida. One of our attorneys is from the Panhandle. We have attorneys who, went to school in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all over the state. We have connections all over the state. We know the right people all throughout the state. So all throughout of Florida is where we practice.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. And before we move on, I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there about personal injury attorneys. What is one thing you wish more people understood about what you and other personal injury lawyers actually do for the accident victims?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of misconceptions about personal injury lawyers. And I'm really happy that you asked this question, Abby, because I think what people need to understand is when you work on a contingency fee, we're in it with you. We are your partners in this case. So we don't collect any fee unless you all get paid. And we lay out all the costs for you, and we don't get those back unless you win your case. So the contingency fee agreement that the Grife Law Firm works on, and most personal injury firms work on, is basically such that we are partners in this thing together. Our interests are married, our interests are tied. So it's not like a lot of lawyers out there who say, oh, well, I bill $500 an hour and you owe me a $5,000 retainer and things like that. We're taking all the risk with you. And so it is the most pure form of partnership that you can get when you hire the Grife Law Firm because our interests are completely aligned. And so, we're taking all the risk with you. We're not getting paid $1 unless we win your case, and we're laying out all the costs for you. Depositions, filing fees, experts, all of that. We're taking that risk because we believe in your case so much. And so we're all kind of like tied together at the hip. We're all pulling the wagon in the same direction. And we're in this with you in every way, shape, and form.
How do you handle it when a potential client comes in with that assumption?
Sure, that happens a lot, Abby, because there's bad actors in all fields. There's whether it's doctors, what have you. There's bad actors. So sometimes some of my clients come in and they've been wronged by an attorney in the past. And I have to explain to them that, hey, the Grife Law Firm, we're different. We're set up to pursue excellence in everything we do, every case we take, every motion we file, every demand that we send out, every negotiation we do, every trial we do. I built this firm on a level of excellence that's very, very high. Not everybody can work here. Not everybody can meet that level of excellence that I demand for my clients. So I explain to my clients, hey, there are definitely some unscrupulous lawyers out there, but we are really top shelf, and we're here to help you, and we are sincerely engaged in obtaining justice for you in a very aggressive manner. You're going to have constant contact with us. You will hear back from us within 24 hours of contacting us. We will give you as many updates on your case as you like. So, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So put your trust in us and let us go get you the result that you deserve.
Now that we know your background and how you got here, let's talk about what drives the work today. So this question is kind of a three-parter. It's going to be, what's the mission behind the Grife Law Firm Injury Lawyers? What are the core services your firm provides? And what are specific types of clients or industries you find yourself working with the most? So going back to the first part of the question, what is the mission behind the Grife Law Firm Injury Lawyers?
The mission behind the Grife Law Firm is to provide excellence in legal representation while treating our clients with the utmost care and concern and pursuing the best results with the biggest financial compensation possible. That's what we're all about. We're all about providing a very, very high level of excellence in legal services, taking exceptional care of our clients, treating them with the respect that they deserve. I always say with my clients is I live by the golden rule is treat people how you want to be treated. So I put myself in their shoes and I say, if I ever needed a lawyer, what would I expect? And then I strive to provide that level of service or frankly higher to my clients. And then of course, the third part is results, because since I was a young lawyer, even probably before I was a young lawyer, I'm an extraordinarily results-oriented person. So, it's like, don't talk about it, be about it. What are the results? You know what I'm saying? So, getting the top level results, making sure our clients are happy. These are all things that the Grife Law Firm is built upon.
So what are the core services that your firm provides?
The core services that our firm provides, and I can break this down, I'm happy to break this down in terms of different practice areas. So for car, motorcycle, truck crashes, a lot of times it's one of the most difficult times in our clients' lives because they don't have transportation because their car is totaled or their car is very, very damaged. They might not be able to work. There's a lot of hardships. They have medical bills. So what I say is lay all of those burdens on us and you just focus on getting better. So what we do is, we set up all the claims with the at-fault insurance, with your own insurance. We make sure all the bills are getting paid the right way by the right insurance companies. We make sure that you get in a rental vehicle or that your car gets totaled out or repaired in a very quick manner. Then, of course, our clients go on a treatment course of 6 to 8 months. It could be longer, it could be shorter, depending on how bad the injuries are. And when the time is right, we send a legal demand package to the at-fault insurance company and demand a certain amount of money. We negotiate, we get them to their top offer. Then I call the client and I say, here's what they're offering. I'll give them my opinion. It's a good offer. It's a bad offer. It's somewhere in between. And I'll always have two numbers for the client. The first number is the gross of what they're offering. And the second is the net of what they'll get in their pocket. And then I give advice and the client makes decisions. So it's up to the client if they want to take it. If they take it, then hey, your case is over. We normally get you paid within 20 days and life moves on. In the event they're not offering enough money, then we file a lawsuit and we litigate. We do some discovery. We seek to prove our case through the discovery process. And then when that's over, we go to a mediation. In Florida, we have court-ordered mediation. If we could settle your case at a mediation, great. If not, then we move to a jury trial. We have board-certified civil trial lawyers. We're very, very adept at trying cases, and the insurance companies know that, and that's why you're in such good hands with us, because they know our reputation. We don't back down. We set the value of our case. We stick to the value of our case. If we could settle it for that amount, then hey, great. Let's move on, and the plaintiff can move on, the defendant can move on, everybody can move forward. But if not, then we will put it in front of a jury, and we will seek the utmost in verdict and judgment in favor of our clients. So that's what we do in our car accident cases. In medical malpractice cases, it looks a little bit different, right? So in medical malpractice cases, someone's gone in for normally a routine procedure that's gone horribly wrong. They've been in the hospital and been misdiagnosed, and there's a catastrophic fallout. Or sometimes they're going to a doctor and there's just no diagnosis. Then all of a sudden, someone tells them they have something very, very wrong with them that should have been caught, way earlier. So a lot of times these people will call us and they'll say, hey, listen, I think this doctor made a huge mistake. This is what happened. Of course, in medical malpractice cases, we're really looking for catastrophic injuries or wrongful death. So in those sort of serious circumstances, we offer the utmost in excellence of, hiring the right experts, getting the medical records reviewed, getting expert affidavits and corroboration that there was negligence here, and then proving the causation link, which is the causal connection between the negligence of the doctor or the hospital or whomever and the injury suffered. And of course, these cases cost tens of thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we lay out all these costs for our clients in the interest of pursuing maximum and full justice and compensation under the law.
Okay, wow. That was a very nicely broken down core services explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what are specific types of clients or industries you find yourself working with most often? Again, I feel like you already answered this a little bit, but if you want to just, again, synopsis of specific types of clients or industries you find yourself working with most often.
We work with every sort of client and person under the sun on God's green earth. We've been privileged to represent every gender, race, religion, creed, education level, job. It doesn't matter. All that matters is, were you seriously wronged by somebody? Do you have injuries and damages? And we're happy to represent anyone and everyone who suffered such problems. So I've represented judges, I've represented senators, I've represented gas station attendants, and I've represented, everyone you can imagine, really. So it's, and I think, my background growing up in New York City has been so beneficial for that reason. Doesn't matter where you are educationally, income-wise, what have you. The Grife Law Firm is very, very happy to represent you if you've suffered harm due to the negligence of someone else, whether it's a car accident, dangerous property fall, medical malpractice, nursing home neglect. The consultation's free. Give us a call.
So when you think about why this firm exists, what are you and your team ultimately trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so me and my team are steadfast in providing people who have been seriously injured or wronged by someone else with the platform and the wherewithal to seek justice. Because let's not forget, a lot of wrongdoers, they're represented by insurance companies, right, that have unlimited resources, hospitals or doctors that have significant resources. And a lot of times we represent the everyday person who doesn't have the resources of an insurance company or a hospital. But when you hire the Grife Law Firm, now you do have those resources. We level the playing field, or frankly, we tilt it in our client's favor because we know what we're doing and we're really good at what we do. So that's really why our firm is here, so that the everyday person has a platform when they suffer a serious harm to hire a top level firm on a contingency fee and not have any sort of financial obligation unless we win their case for them. And they can stand on an even playing field with any hospital, doctor, insurance company, trucking company, and really, really get a great shot at winning their case and getting justice.
That's great. That's a great response. So this next question is going to be a little bit more in depth because I'm curious about the strategic side. And when you take on a case, let's say a car accident with significant injuries, how do you develop your strategy? What's going through your mind in those early stages?
Yeah, so when we take a case with serious injuries, whether it's a car accident, medical malpractice, I have kind of like a unique way. Like I could see the whole case very early on. I could spot the issues. If there's a liability issue, let's preserve the vehicles. Let's download the black box data. Let's get accident reconstructionists involved. Let's make sure that we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed. Same thing on medical malpractice. Let's get our requests out for medical records. Let's figure out what experts we're going to need. So very, very early on in the case, right from the jump, we're thinking 10, 20 steps ahead. What experts do we need? What evidence do we have to gather? What preservation of evidence letters have to go out? Because let's get the 911 calls. Sometimes those could be very probative, right? Because you could say, hey, I just witnessed a crash. The red car ran the red light and hit the blue car. So you want to get the 911 calls. You want to get the police body cam footage. You want to get all of the evidence. And a lot of times this happens in medical malpractice too, where like if somebody suffers a catastrophic event at a medical practice, the police might show up and they might be wearing body cam. Hey, let's see what the doctor said on this body cam, like right after the event. So right when the case comes in, and this is why I encourage people to really call the Grife Law Firm right after a crash or right after a medical malpractice event or a fall, because we don't want any of this evidence to be tampered with or destroyed. And that's kind of like what we're doing right from the start. Let's gather all the evidence, preserve all the evidence, make sure that everything is gathered in a way that's best for our client. Let's get the experts out there to inspect, because these cars, like, you get into a serious car wreck, and these cars are going to get destroyed, like at the junkyard. So, like before that happens, let's go download the black box. Let's take 1,000 pictures. Let's get a 3D scanner and scan the entire vehicle so that we could use it to put together a reconstruction. So that's kind of like where we're at right after an event.
And how do you assess how strong a case actually is? What are those key factors?
So there's so many factors that go into the blender that kind of, pour out how strong a case is. But in a car crash case, I mean, obviously the first thing has to start out with who's at fault. Did someone run a red light? Was somebody texting and driving? Was somebody speeding? So I think really the first thing that you want to look at in a car crash case is liability. You want to look at obviously injuries and medical treatment. Did you go to the hospital right away? Have you been to see any doctor since the crash? Things like that. So we're assessing that. In medical malpractice cases, right off the jump, we want to get the medical records as quickly as possible. We want to get the diagnostic scans as quickly as possible so we could review those ourselves and then find the right experts to really reconstruct what went wrong here. Why did this patient get such a bad result? So, that's what we're kind of like looking to do, like right away, get the medical records in, get the diagnostic studies in, get everything reviewed. In a dangerous property fall case, we want to make sure that we can get pictures of the condition that caused your fall before it gets repaired, altered, or destroyed. So whether it's a dangerous staircase, a broken railing, a broken step, what have you, there's a tile missing, something like that. We need to get out there very, very quickly, investigate, take pictures, and everything like that so that we can help prove your case by showing a jury or whomever, hey, look, you had a really dangerous condition on your property, and unfortunately my client was very injured, and now you need to pay.
And how involved are your clients in the strategic decisions along the way?
our clients are essential to all strategic decisions because we want our clients to be informed and we want to make sure that they're taking a part in the representation, in the case. Because as any lawyer will tell you, if you want to win your case, listen to your client. They're telling you how to do it. They're the ones who lived it. They're the ones who experienced it. So we want to keep our clients abreast of all developments, major findings. What have our experts said? What is the accident reconstructionist saying? What are our expert doctors saying in terms of, any sort of liability decisions and things like that? And I've had many, many fascinating cases where, you're gathering evidence and it's kind of like putting like a puzzle together. You're getting all the different pieces in and you're putting them together. And we want our clients to kind of help us tell us where the pieces are and what they mean. And then, obviously put our legal strategy on top of that and our experts analysis on top of that and formulate a really, really rock solid, very, very, very strong force to go pursue their case with.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a bunch of follow-up questions about the strategic side of it, going through the evaluation and the legal services, but you really broke it down very concisely. So thank you for,
My pleasure, Abby.
So one of the big decisions in personal injury cases is whether to settle with the insurance company or take the case to court. What is your philosophy when it comes to negotiation versus litigation? How do you approach that decision with your clients?
Our decisions on negotiation versus litigation are 1,000% about what's in the client's best interest and what the client wants to achieve. That's all I care about. Mike Grife and the Grife Law Firm is very fortunate. We are blessed with an abundance of cases. So there's not any sort of like one case that we're relying on a certain outcome for anything having to do with us. It is about the client, the client, the client. So when I get an offer in, I'm analyzing what's best for the client. What's the upside of litigation, meaning how much more financial compensation can we get by litigating versus the time and expense of litigation. And, what we think the likelihood is of exceeding the offer and exceeding the offer by the amount that makes it worthwhile to put the client through the litigation. Then when that expert analysis happens, we put a lot of thought, effort, and expert legal analysis into that. That's when I love to have the conversation with the client. Here's what they're offering. Here's what you'll get in your pocket. My opinion on whether it's a good offer, the upsides of litigation, the burdens of litigation, and the upsides of settling, and any downsides of settling, and any money you might be leaving on the table. And we're going to provide you with some really, really in-depth, thorough analysis of that. And it's very individual. It's very specific based on all the different factors of your case, the liability, the injuries, the damages, all of it. And then, like I said, I give advice, but the client makes the decision. So I'll tell the client, this is my opinion on whether we should litigate or settle, but ultimately it's up to my client. And if they're happy, then I'm happy.
Can you give a sense of how often your cases settle versus go to trial?
So I would say the vast majority of cases settle. Some of them settle, certainly during the litigation process. Mediation is mandatory in Florida. So there's mediation is just basically kind of like a settlement conference with an impartial mediator. So a lot of times a case will either settle at mediation or that will spawn negotiations that will allow the case to settle. But I would say, there's a certain percentage that's settled during the pre-suit period, meaning before litigation ever happens. And, the client doesn't have to be deposed and go through discovery and things like that. Then there's a large portion of cases as well that have to be litigated. So you file a lawsuit, you do discovery, things like that. But then those cases settle before trial. And then there are a good amount of cases that actually do go to a jury trial. I would say the vast majority of cases are able to settle before a jury trial, but sometimes the parties are just so far apart that, you really have to put it in front of 6 impartial people in the community and let them figure out what the correct verdict is. Sneak preview, my client's always right and the defense is always wrong. But, we hope that the jurors in their wisdom will come to that conclusion.
So when do you know it's time to walk away from a settlement offer and just go to court?
I would say it's all in relation to the harm that the client suffered. When you have a client that suffered a significant amount of harm and they're offering an insignificant amount of money, they make it a very easy decision. The more money that the defense offers, the harder it is to make the decision to go to court. Sometimes it's very easy. There's a huge disagreement on the facts of the case or the liability or causation, and the defense is really not offering that much money. And hey, this is a no-brainer. We have to go try the case. So there's a direct relationship between the size of the offer, the amount of money, and then the decision on whether to go to trial. Because if you're not leaving any money on the table, it makes it very easy. But the more money you're leaving on the table, it makes the decision a little bit more interesting. So we all kind of like put this into the formula or algorithm of whether or not to go to trial. What are the harms here? What's the liability component? What are they offering? What do we value the case at? And then we make a decision from there.
And I really liked earlier when you kind of walked me through what the decision-making process with the client. So what is like the reality of going to trial for a client, the time, stress, uncertainty?
Yeah, so going to trial is often a stressful thing for the client, but we try to make it as simple as possible and as enjoyable as possible, if that makes sense. So I think the big thing about going to trial for the client is be prepared. Know what to expect. Know how to act. Know how to conduct yourself. The client's testimony is normally only a very small part of the trial in terms of time, but it's often the most important part of trial in terms of the outcome. So, it might be a 2-week trial and the client's entire testimony is 3 hours. So it is a commitment that they're going to have to take off work. They're going to have to come to the courthouse. They're going to have to be there normally around 9 a.m. They're going to have to stay there normally until 5:30 p.m. So going to trial is really reserved for those cases where the parties are significantly apart in terms of negotiations. There's a really bona fide dispute. So we make sure that the trial process is as easy and convenient for our clients as possible, that they have as much notice as possible. They're able to tell their employer, hey, listen, I'm going to need this time off, and we're going to really go to the courthouse and pursue justice.
All right. And so transitioning from that, here's a bigger question. How do you define success for you and the Grife Law Firm? What does a successful case look like? And is it purely about the settlement amount or verdict, or are there other factors?
The biggest success that the Grife Law Firm has is happy clients. Because we could talk about all the awards and peer review and all that stuff, but I could tell you now that nothing is more fulfilling than a client who has suffered a very, very serious harm, and you meet them at a very, very vulnerable time in their lives. And then at the end of the day, they're doing way better physically, they're doing way better mentally. And then you give them hopefully a very, very, very large check for what they've been through. And you could just, all the relief, all of the good vibes are restored in their lives. They may not be the same as before, but they feel justice. They feel vindicated. They feel like they've gotten the financial compensation for the harms, and they can move forward in their lives with dignity and self-respect, knowing that they took a stand. They hired the Grife Law Firm. They stood up for themselves and they got justice. And that is as rewarding and fulfilling as a professional that I think in my life and in most people's lives that you could really get. It's a really, really kind of altruistic thing to take someone who suffered such a serious harm and spend my professional time, my experience, my resources, and invest all that and risk it in seeking justice for them. And, here we are, like we're at the end of the day and they're vindicated and they're feeling good. They have a lot of money now. And more importantly, they feel psychologically vindicated and that they're ready to move on with their lives in a very, very happy, meaningful, and productive way. I can think of one story, if I may, where a woman called very, very distressed. She had lost her husband about 2 weeks ago. She thought for sure it was medical malpractice. She felt like there was a cover-up. She couldn't get a death certificate. Her husband had very specific complaints in the days before he passed away. He had gone to the hospital. They had done diagnostic tests. They told him he was fine. And then he passed away very, very suddenly. So I said, I'm your guy. Hire me. We're good to go. She came into my office, met with me, hired the Grife Law Firm. Within a week, I had an autopsy that completely proved that what she suspected happened actually did happen, that there was significant medical negligence that unfortunately killed her husband. We got the death certificate, we got everything, and then we got her, a 7-figure recovery for everything she had been through. So when you take people like that are so distressed, rightfully so, they feel like they're being kind of railroaded by a system. And then you step in, you get justice, you take the path to help them feel dignified and restored. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. What's something about your process that clients comment on the most?
I feel like clients really like how relatable we are. We treat them like family. I think some people think of lawyers as like maybe a little snobbish or things like that or what have you. But, I think just because of my background and how I grew up, I'm able to relate to people in a different way than I think some lawyers and, that didn't grow up how I grew up. I'm able to relate to people a little bit better. And I think most of the lawyers here really take the care and the time and the concern to be able to relate to clients, not as a file number, not as, a product, as a person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what your concerns are. I want to get to know how this has affected your life. I want to get to know what you enjoyed doing before that you're not able to do now. How has this car crash or medical malpractice event affected your life? And how can we make this right? So I think that people really enjoy working with the Grife Law Firm because we really do treat you like family. We like to be warm. We like to, really be inviting and engaging. And I think that that's something that our firm offers that some firms don't.
And how do you make sure transparency and ethics stay front and center in the way that you operate?
So transparency and ethics have always been cornerstones at the Grife Law Firm. We're an open book. Anyone can come in and look at our file or what have you, or see what they want and tell them, because, one thing is I kind of like try to live by a code where I don't BS anyone and I don't want to be BS'd. So, I'm like that in my professional life. I don't want to give my clients, I'm not going to sell a vision that I can't deliver. Right? Because I just wouldn't want to do that to someone and I wouldn't want to be treated that way. So transparency is very, very big here. We want our clients to know exactly the good, the bad, everything having to do with their case. And then ethics is at the forefront of everything we do. We comply with all the Florida bar rules. We're extraordinarily ethical. I think any law firm that's been in existence, as long as the Grife Law Firm, really, you almost have to be ethical, because if not, there's probably going to be something that happens. So, acting in the best interest of our clients, complying with all the rules, doing all these things, it's very, very important to us, and we take it very seriously.
Yeah, thank you for breaking all of that down about how you guys operate and everything. Take us through your career journey from law school to launching the Grife Law Firm Injury Lawyers. What did that path look like? Who did you work with along the way?
Sure. So I launched the Grife Law Firm in 2014. Before that, I had worked for a really prominent law firm in Delray Beach. Really was blessed out of law school to get hired by a gentleman by the name of Ken Metnick, who will always be like a mentor to me. Just an outstanding human being, an outstanding trial lawyer, really cared about his clients, really, really great guy. After I worked for him, I became an associate at another firm, a preeminent firm, and became a partner there. The firm was called Glick and Grife, and I worked for there for about 5 years. And then I started the Grife Law Firm in 2014 to really, really set, like Quentin Tarantino would say, a band apart, to really, really elevate to the level that I thought personal injury and medical malpractice services should elevate to provide top tier services, and start a firm in my vision of, what a law firm should be. I think the legal profession should be treated very, very seriously. I think that you should have, frankly, luxurious offices if you're going to be in Boca Raton. And I think that, the legal profession needs to be respected. Your clients need to be respected. And so, I was so blessed and honored to start the Grife Law Firm and really create this vision of kind of like a hedge fund law firm, almost, if you want to say, of like, just luxury, excellence. Our clients are treated like gold. They come into our office. They're normally wowed. We have every sort of, comfort that they can imagine. Because, they're going through something, right? And we want them to feel relaxed, and we want them to feel comfortable, and that they're kind of in the lap of luxury while they're going through this really difficult process. So that's kind of like how the Grife Law Firm came about, and, really wanting to create a law firm in my image of how I live my life and how I think clients should be treated who are going through something like a very serious personal injury, that sort of thing.
I can totally see it with the big windows behind you. It looks amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So this is a little bit of an interesting question. So looking back, is there a role or experience that you didn't appreciate at the time, but now you see it as pivotal?
Well, I'll say this. So I've always been kind of like a type A, in charge sort of guy. So I think when I was starting as a young lawyer, you could be a little bit of a bull in a china shop, right? And I remember actually, it's very interesting you asked that, and I hope that this answers the question. But I remember I had a law school professor, and he said that one of his first jury trials, that the partner told him, hey, go cross-examine this witness. And he said he cross-examined this person and he tore them limb from limb. And he goes to the partner, like, didn't I do a great job? He goes, sit down. He's like, that's not the way to do it. And he couldn't understand, because he's like, wow, like I just ripped this guy, like, I just tore this guy up. So I think it's kind of like when you're a younger lawyer, you don't understand necessarily the human side of it as much. So I think that, as you get older and you mature and you kind of, develop more of the human side. And I think when I was younger and a young associate, being as type A as I am and as kind of like aggressive as I am, I don't know if I appreciated like, just being a first or second year associate. I probably wanted to run the firm when I was like 25, right? So I think, like now I can kind of understand more a little bit about maybe as a younger lawyer, like falling into line and kind of understanding the human side a little bit more, whether it's an adverse, witness or not, kind of like just keeping everything learnable, likable, and always maintaining, your dignity and your composure no matter what's going on. I think that that's a skill that comes with being a little bit of a, more experienced, wiser attorney.
Yeah, that's great that you have all of these experiences that have led you to where you are now. So over the course of your career, I'm sure there have been cases that really stand out. What are some cases or achievements that you're most proud of? Not necessarily like the biggest headlines, but the ones that have meant the most to you.
Yeah, so I would love to tell you about that, because I can think of quite a few cases and quite a few clients that I've helped out where I could, and almost every case I could say like, wow, like you hiring Mike Grife and the Grife Law Firm has made a difference. But I can remember very early in my career, and I really did pick up PI law so naturally. You know what I'm saying? Like a fish to water. Like it just came so naturally from day one. But I can remember very early in my career, a gentleman called me, and we're going back to probably 15 years at least. And he called me and he said, hey, listen, I've been really seriously injured. I have a lawyer. This lawyer is telling me my case is worth $8,000. And I'm telling him, no way, I got a serious injury here. So I kind of told him about my process. He was from New York. So he listened to me talk for about 5 minutes. He goes, you're hired. So I evaluated all of his records and his whole file. And I said, wow, you really do have a serious case here. You're right. And he got some diagnostic testing and things like that. And we were able to get him over $600,000 when his previous lawyer said his case was worth $8,000. So I think when, and to this day, 15 years later, he just emailed me this week to tell me how much he likes my social media posts for my firm and things like that. He's one of my biggest fans, and I absolutely love the guy. He's an amazing guy. So, that's the sort of case where, like, maybe a lawyer who doesn't have the wherewithal that I have tell someone their case is worth very little, and then we get them, hundreds of times of what they said the case was worth. In this case, again, $8,000 to $625,000, which is a fairly significant difference. I can think of a case where I represented the sister of somebody who suffered a very, very significant brain injury due to medical malpractice. And she was laid up in a hospital, and they wanted to kick her out of the hospital. And she was profoundly brain injured to the point where she couldn't care for herself anymore. And we were able to help get her into a neurological specialty facility where this girl, while the case was pending, got top level care relative to her condition. And then we were able to resolve the case for 8 figures. We were able to, get her all the help she's going to need for the rest of her life, and really significantly change that family's entire trajectory, frankly, in terms of being able to care for this person, making her life as comfortable as possible, getting her the care and caretakers and facilities and housing that she's going to need. So that was a great honor and privilege to represent that family. That will always be a very special case. And of course, the case I told you about earlier, where a woman called me. She had lost her husband 2 weeks earlier. She was in absolute panic mode. She felt like she was being railroaded by the hospital. No one would sign the death certificate. No one would do an autopsy. She hires us. Within 1 week, we have an autopsy confirming the medical negligence that she suspected. We have a death certificate. We, aggressively litigate her case, get all the expert corroboration we need, and get her, millions of dollars in compensation in terms of what she's been through. So, finding people who are vulnerable and restoring them to a position of dignity and strength is just such an honor. Even people who have been hurt in everyday sort of car accidents, whose life is in flux because they don't have transportation, they have medical bills, they don't know what to do, and they hire us, and we get their whole life organized within 48 hours. And then we get them a very, very large amount of money for what they've been through. It's an honor and privilege.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of confidence in the way you handle your cases, which is amazing. Are there any cases that change the way that you approach your work going forward?
I don't know if there's any case that changed my approach, but I just think, with age comes wisdom. And I think that as I've grown as an attorney, like, for example, the professor who, as a very, very young lawyer, tore apart a witness on cross-examination, and he thought the partner was going to be happy, but the partner wasn't happy because the guy probably looked like a jerk in front of the jury. So I think those are the things that you kind of try to learn is really, if I'm being honest with you, law is about human connection. And that's connecting with your client and connecting with the witnesses, because you don't go ultra aggressive towards a witness that, if you're kind to, is going to help you, and, vice versa. So it's like you have to be able to read the room, read the witness, and then figure out what the best strategy is. And that could be during the middle of a deposition. You know what I'm saying? So it's like kind of like the more experience and wisdom you get, the more, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear, seventh gear, and I can hit any of those gears that I need to hit. But you know what I'm saying? There's no need to hit seventh gear when the witness is going to do better if I'm in third gear. So, there's just a lot of wisdom that comes with, age and experience. And, I've been really fortunate to gain that. So, and I'm still learning. I'm still getting better. So.
Yeah, always learning's a good thing. And thank you for sharing those case stories. Those are so interesting to hear about. So beyond the cases that you take on, how do you contribute to the legal community, whether that's mentoring, teaching, writing? Are there ways that you're involved beyond your day-to-day practice? Again, I know you kind of answered this at the beginning, but would love for you to expand on kind of what you talked about earlier.
Yeah, of course, Abby. I'd be happy to. But I can tell you right now, one of the most rewarding ways that I've given back before I get into kind of like, the more formal legal community was I represented a young gentleman who was a college student who had a medical malpractice case. And then after his case was over, he came to work for me and I mentored him. He's now a second-year law student. He's on his way to a very prosperous career. I've mentored young lawyers throughout my career who were kind of like maybe down on their luck and not having the results that they wanted with their career. And now they're having very nice careers. So I've really tried to, give back in the way that, kind of some of the older lawyers helped me when I was coming up. I really try to do that and mentor young lawyers and help them to hopefully very prosperous career where most importantly, they're helping people, because that's really the most important thing. But in terms of, formal legal community, so with regards to the Palm Beach County Bar Association, we're in Boca Raton, we're in Palm Beach County. So I sit on the Civil Justice Committee or the Civil Rules Committee in terms of meeting with judges, every couple of months, and we review all the local rules and all the rules that are promulgated by the Supreme Court and how these are going to affect our practices and affect the judges and the divisions and what we can do to address things like lack of hearing availability and all kinds of issues that the court faces, because we're all in this together. The judges, the court, the JAs, the judicial assistants, the lawyers, the paralegals, we're all in the same system together. So how can we make it more perfect? How can we make it easier and better? I've also sat on the Personal Injury and Wrongful Death CLE committee, where we've promulgated different, seminars and things like that for personal injury and wrongful death. I presented a life care planner at one of these events a couple of years ago, which was really cool. I think life care planning is a very, very essential part in any sort of catastrophic injury case. So I've been fortunate enough to do that. And really just, I know I've sat on some other committees that I probably can't remember right now, but that's okay. But, I think giving back to the legal community, but really valuing your relationship with your client more than anything, I think it's all very important.
Yeah, mentoring is such a big part of that. So I love to hear that you take that so seriously. So,
Thanks.
and then kind of going off of that, again, I know you mentioned a couple of these earlier, but I know a lot of attorneys have plaques on the wall. But are there any recognitions, awards, or honors that have been really meaningful to you, ones that you feel reflect the work that you and your team are doing?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few. I think being AV rated by Martindale-Hubbell, I think most lawyers agree that Martindale-Hubbell is probably the most respected peer review, or certainly one of the most respected peer review communities that we have here in law. So the way that works is that, you apply for a Martindale-Hubbell rating. They ask dozens of lawyers in the community to take kind of a survey about you, about your legal skills and your ability, and then they give you a rating. The highest rating they can give you is AV-Preeminent. And I've been AV-Preeminent rated for over a decade. So when I was a really young lawyer, I was respected enough to get an AV rating. And I thought that was really cool. I'm in Best Lawyers of America, which is another peer-reviewed society, very, very highly well-respected. And I'm in that for personal injury and medical malpractice, recognized by Best Lawyers in America. The multi-million-dollar advocates forum, which I think is really cool because this isn't about, someone who just sat back and wrote a demand and was lucky enough to get millions of dollars because they had a really catastrophic injury case. This is about someone who was the lead counsel in a litigation that resulted in a multi-million-dollar recovery. So being a life member of the multi-million-dollar advocates forum is extremely cool. Being super lawyers, recognized by super lawyers for over a decade, very, very meaningful and cool. So just really, really grateful to my colleagues in the legal community for recognizing me, and all these very fine organizations for recognizing me. And more importantly, really recognizing the results that I've gotten from my clients and the work that I do for my clients.
Yeah, thank you for not just listing the awards, but kind of explaining why they're meaningful too. That's super helpful for all of the non-lawyers out there.
Right. Totally.
I want to shift gears a bit. Let's talk about something that's top of mind in the legal world right now. What is your take on personal injury and car accident? And where do you see it heading within the legal system over the next few years?
I think the big change in personal injury law in Florida that we really need is we need mandatory bodily injury insurance. Florida is only one of 2 states in the country that doesn't have mandatory bodily injury. So imagine a world where someone can get in behind the wheel of a car. They could be drunk. They could be texting while driving. They could be the utmost reckless, cause a major, major crash, devastating injuries, and they have zero insurance that provides any benefit to the injured victim. That's unacceptable. And in Florida, that needs to be changed. And the legislature is trying to change it. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed it. But, I think everyone in Florida recognizes that we need mandatory bodily injury insurance. So there's some kind of recovery if a really negligent driver causes substantial harm. Because chances are, if there's no insurance, you're going to have a very, very hard time collecting from that person any sort of financial assets. Because if they have no assets, then there's nothing to recover. As they say, you can't get blood from a stone. So I think with regards to the future of personal injury in Florida, first thing is we need mandatory bodily injury. But that also dovetails with the fact that everyone in Florida should make sure that they have uninsured motorist coverage, because there's a lot of uninsured drivers out here. And if you're missing work and you have medical bills and you don't have uninsured motorist coverage and the person who hit you didn't have bodily injury, you might not be able to get any compensation. So we need mandatory bodily injury. We need everyone to get uninsured motorist coverage. We really need consumers to be educated in this and make sure, none of us want to use our insurance, right? But, you need it if it's a rainy day, so to speak. And, if it rains, you're going to want an umbrella. And so get this insurance coverage. And, I think that's really where the future of car accidents needs to go in Florida. Mandatory bodily injury insurance. Make sure everyone's protected, that they can't just inflict massive harm because they're reckless and then have no responsibility.
Yeah, that's a super important take. And so technology is changing everything, and the legal industry is no exception. What innovations do you think will transform the legal profession, and how are you leveraging technology and AI in your own practice right now?
Great question, Abby. I think this is really important to address because what's obviously all the rage right now is AI. Whether you're using ChatGPT or Google Gemini or whatever it is that people are using for AI. And we at the Grife Law Firm are happy to leverage AI to kind of supplement, right? We want to get AI's opinion. But I'm telling you now that AI is only as good in the legal field for a lawyer as the lawyer who's using it. Because as the old saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. You have lawyers here who have been sanctioned because they relied on some kind of AI. AI hallucinated a case. They put that in front of the court and it's been recognized and they've been sanctioned. So you don't want a lawyer who's a robot using AI and just relying upon that, because it's really about, like I said before, the human element. And I don't think that's anything that's ever going to change. So yes, of course you want to use AI and leverage AI to get their insights and opinions, whether it's, jury research, whether it's, hey, this is my memorandum of law. Are you aware of any other, sources that I should be looking at, or any other authority that I should be looking at from the case law? Or, hey, look, what do you think of this deposition? Or what do you think of these arguments and things like that? And you want to use that as one piece of the puzzle, one cog in the wheel. But no lawyer should use that as basically their entire practice. You don't want to get a lazy lawyer who's like, hey, you're basically hiring ChatGPT. Hire a real lawyer, a real excellent, lawyer, a real person who's going to bring the human element, legal experience, acumen, knowledge, and marry that with AI and leverage AI to your benefit.
Yeah. So how do you stay on top of changes in the law and new precedents, evolving frameworks, all of that?
Yeah, so we're a member of many, many services that provide us with all the new cases that come out. All the new cases that come out are available on the District Court of Appeals and the Florida Supreme Court website. We thoroughly review the new cases that come out. We're always staying abreast of all the changes in the law, the new cases, the new standards, whether the Florida Supreme Court is passing new rules, whatever it is. We're on top of all the cutting edge changes in law because we want to leverage all the cases that come out in our client's favor. We want to know what we need to do to prove your case. Way to do that is to stay up on the case law. So, we're always about expanding our knowledge, staying up to date with all the breaking news in the legal field. And we really pride ourselves on that.
Okay, one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people don't really understand their rights or the legal process until they're already in a tough situation. How important is client education and legal awareness to you? And what role do you feel you play in helping people understand their options before they need a lawyer?
I think it's such a great question because I think it's my job as the lawyer to kind of teach the client, what the law is and what the law holds with regards to their unique situation. Most of my clients aren't lawyers, right? They're not very aware of all the cutting edge and all the details and intricacies of the law. So it's my job to walk you through it really at the beginning of your case, because a lot of the issues are staring us right in the face when you hire us. So we want to be able to say, here's what happened to you. Here's the law that applies to your case. Here's what we need to prove to win your case. And this is how we're going to do it. So I think educating the public and educating the consumer, especially our client, in the legal field, the law, how it works, how it applies to their case is massively important. And it's something that I love doing. I love teaching people of, here's how the law applies. Here's, the law we have in Florida. And people can be surprised at certain things of how the law works, especially evidence. What evidence is allowed to be heard by a jury? What evidence is excluded from being heard by a jury? Burdens of proof and things like that. So these are all things that fascinate me. But for most of my clients, they're unaware of, just kind of like if you went to a doctor and you had a medical problem, you would want the doctor to break down like, hey, here's what's going on. Like, here's what's happening to you. Here's why it's happening. Here are all your treatment options. Here's what you recommend. And as lawyers, we got to do the same thing. Hey, here's what happened. Here's the law that governs your case. Here's how we're going to win the case. And give you all the strategies that you need so you feel completely comfortable with all your questions answered and you understand that you're dealing with some real professionals here who are very knowledgeable, who are going to go to bat for you to win your case. Here's how the law works. Here's how we're going to apply it. Here's how we're going to do it. And here's how we're going to win.
So do you create any content, videos, articles, social media to help educate people?
Yes, we're very, very prolific in social media. The Grife Law Firm has Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, everything you can imagine. And a lot of what we do on our social media are reels. And, all the lawyers in our firm are cutting reels all the time. And it's to help you, the consumer out there, to understand the law and to understand how the law works, what you should do if you're in a car, motorcycle, or truck crash, what to do if you're the victim of medical malpractice, things to look out for like uninsured doctors, things to look out for like don't sign arbitration agreements. We're constantly striving to educate the consumer and educate the people out there so they're more knowledgeable to put the law to work for them when, again, dealing with a lot of times big insurance who's not on your side, even if it's your own insurer, hospitals and doctors who are looking to protect their own bottom line and their own interests. So how do we level that playing field? We've cut reels on the importance of if you're, injured due to a dangerous condition, take pictures, before you leave the scene, if possible. Same with the car wreck. Take pictures of the car. Do everything you can to document the evidence at the scene. In a medical malpractice case, get whatever medical records you can gather. Take pictures of, any important people or any sort of injuries you've suffered. Constantly document. So we're always striving through social media to educate the public and educate the consumer to help us win for you.
All right. So everyone listening, go check out their social media. Okay, Mike, for this next question, let's get a little bit more personal. What are your guiding principles of your career Is there a quote, a motto, or a philosophy that you come back to? And are there any leaders in law or in business that you really admire or draw inspiration from?
Well, I know President Roosevelt said, keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the stars. I'm a huge believer in that. Shoot for the best, shoot for everything, fulfill your goals, set your goals, and meet your goals. But stay grounded. Like don't, Rome wasn't built in a day. Stay grounded, keep your feet on the ground, but really shoot for the stars, right? But I could tell you that my guiding principle really in law is to just want it more than the other guy or girl. Want it more than them, work hard for them, out-strategize them, outwork them, and beat them. Because that's the way to do it. A lot of lawyers out there aren't willing to go the extra mile. A lot of lawyers out there are just looking to push paper. I'm looking to win. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking to win for my clients. So I think that's really what set me apart and how I've been able to be so successful is I'm kind of like a mechanism that you set in motion, and I'm not going to stop until I win your case, period. Do everything I can to win your case. So I think by outworking, out hustling, out thinking, like all of it, and just wanting it more, I think I've been able to do whatever is necessary to, almost always win the case for my client. And I think that's really what's, kind of set me apart.
I'm feeling inspired. That's definitely the type of lawyer that I would want in this situation.
Thanks, Abby.
Yeah. So, all right, let's make sure people know where to find you. If someone listening wants to follow you or find your content online, where should they go, and what are the best places to keep up with you and the Grife Law Firm injury lawyers?
Great question. So obviously our website, thegrifelawfirm.com. You can find all of our bios, our results, everything like that on there, educational pieces on the law and how it works. On Instagram, we're at the Grife Law Firm. Lot of educational stuff on there, reels that'll help you help protect your family, whether you're going through a car crash, trip and fall, dangerous property incident, medical malpractice, nursing home, how to protect yourself and your family. Facebook, we have a page, the Grife Law Firm, same with LinkedIn. And of course, you can call us anytime. Anyone who has any questions about the law, anything you're going through, I'm more than happy to help everybody out and share my wealth of knowledge of experience. Our phone number is 561-998-0770 or toll free 855-998-0770. Call us. You're facing a situation, you want some legal advice, give us a ring. We're more than happy to help out.
Love that. You already kind of jumped ahead to my next question. For someone listening who's been in an accident or knows someone who has and thinks they might need legal help, what's the best way to get in touch with you? How does someone book a consultation or request a case evaluation with the Grife Law Firm?
Great question, Abby. So anyone who's injured or knows someone who suffered an injury and feels like they need a legal consultation, the consultation is free. We're very, very available. We actually have people 24/7 who are picking up the phones and able to connect you with attorneys who will answer your questions, walk you through your cases. Our number is 561-998-0770, toll free 855-998-0770. You can go on our website, thegrifelawfirm.com, and we have a chat app that you could, put all your case details in and get a call back whenever you like. We're very accessible. We understand that a lot of our clients work, might not be available 9 to 5. Cool. Let's talk after work. Let's talk before work. Whatever works for you. We're very approachable. We're very down to earth. We just want our clients and our potential clients to feel very comfortable in hiring us and feel great about that decision.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, Mike, this has been an incredible conversation. Before we wrap up, there's just one more question. What motivates you to keep doing this work and fighting for your clients?
This work gives me so much meaning and so much satisfaction. Frankly, it's like almost like a soul satisfaction, really, of again, being able to take someone who's going through one of the toughest times of their lives and be able to help them through that. And then at the end of the day, restore their dignity, restore their self-worth, a lot of times make them feel totally vindicated, in terms of like they were right. What they thought happened to them actually did happen. And we proved that. And we've gotten them humongous amounts of financial compensation for those hardships. And seeing people at the beginning of their case in so much distress because they've had a car crash, they don't have any transportation, they have medical bills, they're injured, they don't know where to go. And then at the end of the case, they have a new car, all their bills are paid, and they have a lot of financial compensation and they're feeling better. Or in a medical malpractice case, someone suffers serious injury or they lose a loved one and they are in very, very serious distress and they don't know how to handle it because medical malpractice cases are so complex and the hospital or the doctor that they think did wrong is trying to stonewall them or trying to pull the wool over their eye and say, no, just sometimes bad things happen. And they know it's a lot deeper than that. And they hire me and I'm able to investigate and show that what they think happened actually did happen and they are right. And, we get a lot of money for what they've been through and they have that satisfaction and dignity of knowing, hey, someone stuck up for me, someone righted this wrong. And the fact that I'm, the mechanism that they could use to get that satisfaction and move on with their lives with dignity, self-respect, and a lot of financial compensation for what they've been through to hopefully make really, really great memories to kind of, lessen those bad memories of what they've been through. I mean, that's priceless.
I love that. And for anyone listening, if you or someone you know has been injured in an accident in Florida and needs expert legal representation, Mike Grife and the expert team at the Grife Law Firm Injury Lawyers are here to help. You can reach them at www.thegrifelawfirm.com. That's www.thegrifelawfirm.com or call them directly at 561-998-0770. Mike, thanks so much for being here and for sharing your story with us today. Any final thoughts you want to share?
Abby, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed, the podcast and being able to tell people a little bit about us and more importantly, what we could do to help them in the event they suffer a very, very serious injury or lose a loved one. We're excellent at what we do. We're very approachable. We really, really care about you and your case and what you've been through. So, if you need us, we're here.
Thanks for tuning in for the very first episode of the Boca Raton Injury Law with Mike Grife. Check the show notes for any links or resources, and we will see you next time.